All right, big ups to the mighty Who Dat Nation, man. Welcome, welcome, welcome. You're now rocking with the Sports Coma with Big Q and the guys, where we have intense, entertaining, educating, and enlightening sport talk from your favorite sports fam. Shout out to the fam. Appreciate y'all. It's Patreon Tuesday, man. We'll be back later on tonight for the Patreon and YouTube membership family with film study and more in-depth analysis on some of the moves the Saints have made in a flurry. But this is a quick flash report for the family members out there, just to be abreast of some of the events that's going on with the black and gold. Shout out to NOLA.com on the scoop. The Saints had a busy day on the transaction wire, signing 3 players and waiving 2. Let's jump right into it. Y'all hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the share button. We up in this thing. After the Saints had the preseason matchup in Southern California, they had some moves to make. Players got hurt, and ultimately the Saints needed to kind of regroup and bring in some more players. So the Saints signed 3 players after a recent tryout, and receiver Roderick Daniels, tight end Seth Green, who'd been with the team before, defensive tackle Jayden Peevy. To make room for the additions, the Saints waived tight end Mason Pline, who was hurt, receiver Chris Tyree, who's also hurt with injury designations. And particularly to give you some breakdown, Roderick Daniels had participated in trial basis with the Saints earlier this summer. He's a SMU receiver who recorded 18 touchdowns in his college career, 12 as a receiver, 4 as a runner, and then he had numbers as a punt returner. Now, Seth Green was with the Saints early in the training camp, but was waived after the Saints claimed Pline off of the waiver wire. And, of course, we know Pline had an unspecified, undisclosed injury that was dealing with his left shoulder, arm. Peevy appeared in 6 NFL games the last 3 seasons with the Titans, and the Panthers recorded a sack and a half and a forced fumble in his career. He also spent time with the Texans practice squad last season. And of course, we talk about some of the players that the Saints did host in this situation. They did host a bunch of people, but very interesting that the Saints didn't elect to go for a more distinguished tight end, maybe go out for a veteran. They got an unproven guy in Seth Green. They brought in another defensive tackle, which was really interesting, being that they appeared to have an issue at offensive line, even though they tried out about a bunch of offensive linemen. So what's going on there? So adding a wide receiver, because I see you lost Tyree, adding a tight end, you lost a tight end, but adding a defensive player and Jayden Peevy, we'll see what that is later on. Maybe there's something else going on. All right, and of course, to kind of delve into it, let's talk about some of the players that the New Orleans Saints did try out, man. Let's talk about it. Saints Wire, shout out to Mr. John Sigler, and of course the fury of moves. The Saints tried out all these players, but ultimately signing with Roderick and Daniels and a couple of Peevy and Seth Green again. They tried out all these guys. Also at wide receiver, Javonte Payton, who was 6'1", 180, played college football at Mississippi State. They tried him out. He started with Arizona, his pro career Arizona, and he was part of the 3-team trade the XFL had in the spring league with the Arlington Renegades. Wide receiver Carnell Powell, who's a former 5th-round pick by the Chiefs, 6 feet 204. He has some experience there. And Justin Ross, y'all remember he was the biggest player in this group, 6'4", 210, 2-time Super Bowl winner with the Chiefs. Came off the bench to catch 6 passes for 53 yards in 14 games. He was also brought in. He had some issues in college. He was suspended for more than a month of the 23 season after dealing with domestic battery. The defensive lineman the Saints tried out, Thor Griffin. The Saints backup right tackle Mendoza. Griffin transferred like him. They transferred to Louisville in 3 years of playing in the Ivy League with Harvard, though not with Yale. He was teammates with Tyler Shuck. He was a productive pass rusher in both stops and initially signed with the Sea Chickens. He was, of course, not signed. Now, Tyler Manoa, who was the UCLA defensive lineman from 2018 to 21, did spend some time with the Vikings and Raiders as a pro. Defensive tackle Leonard Payne, college teammate with Jake Haener at Fresno State. He was initially signed by the Dolphins as a rookie free agent. He spent his offseason with the Packers, who released him back in April. And, of course, Jayden Peevy, who's a defensive lineman we signed, 6'5", 308 pounds, spent most of his NFL career on practice squads. He had stops with the Titans and Panthers, Browns, Texans, and his college ball was played at Texas A&M. So they signed him after the tryout. So these are a few of the people that they brought in from the offensive line standpoint. They tried out a center, Nick Harris, a 5th-round pick by the Browns out of the University of Washington. Exclusively snapped the ball himself at center and appearing in a handful of games as a right guard. He's 26 years old and played both center and guard spots in college. Guard Mike Penasuik, who played a defense at college at Michigan State, switched to offense, turning pro. He spent time with the Raiders and Panthers. He was also in the XFL and the UFL, and he also had a training camp visit with the Colts last summer. And then, of course, we get to some of the veteran offensive linemen. Scott Quisenberry, who's a 30-year-old, dressed for the NFL game in 22 with the Texans as a starting center. Before that, he had sporadic appearances with the Chargers. And before they drafted him out of UCLA back in 2018 and 21, his career was interrupted by a knee injury. Back in 2023, he spent last season on the Texas practice squad. And of course, Cody Whitehair, the highest drafted player on the list. Whitehair played college football at Kansas State and was picked in the 2nd round back in 2016 by the Bears. Now 33 years old. He's coming off a year as a backup at the left guard with the Raiders. He's logged well over 1,000 career snaps at left guard and center with a couple hundred reps at the right guard position. So these are some of the guys the Saints brought in. Ultimately, they didn't sign some of the more veteran offensive linemen that we anticipated that they should pick up and sign because of the obvious fact that they're now dealing with some stuff at the offensive line position. Now, let's just talk about that. The number one thing kind of mentioned was the fact that Saints center Will Clapp suffered serious foot injury. He's basically done for the year. For the most part, Will Clapp is done. He's the top backup for the Saints behind Eric McCoy, who spent some time hurt last year. So the Saints had some positive reps from Torricelli Simpkins. He went out there the 3rd and went out there and performed admirably. But due to the Saints will still do themselves a service to kind of have a veteran presence there just to back up the room. So suffered a serious foot injury. That's Jordan Schultz, among others, that's believed to be a season-ending one. He's awaiting for confirmation on the testing results. So former LSU Tiger, he was with the Bills last year. The Saints brought him back to back up Eric McCoy. So the backup's going to need backup as Will Clapp is most likely done for the year. And of course, then we go into the other news dealing with Trevor Penning. He also sustained an injury in the preseason game week 1 for the Saints a couple of days ago. And NFL's network, Ian Rappaport, reported that the Saints anticipated left guard Trevor Penning missing, quote, just a few weeks, end quote, after injuring his foot in a loss to the team. So it's good news. Penning's still going to miss a few valuable reps at that guard position, which means Dylan Redunce will be elevated to that guard position behind him. But it'll be interesting to see just how this will work. But man, and he mentioned here one player to watch in veteran offensive lineman Dylan Redunce, who was widely criticized for his play against the Chargers, but it's worth noting he was playing out of position. He spent most of the summer as the left guard, and this is true. And like I said during the game, I just wanted to slap the piss out of whoever tried to move him to a blindside tackle position. He's going to the guard position, and we'll see how it goes. Yeah, he looked horrible out of position. It wasn't a good look. Man, I don't think he had much experience playing the tackle position, above all the left tackle position. He spent most of the time at guard. So trying to cross-train him to help him out with depth, it just didn't look good in the first matchup. Maybe improves, but not at that tackle position now that they'll need him to play guard while Penning rehabs. So anyway, that's a few things to kind of talk about on this episode of the Coma, the quick flash report. Listen, do me a service and comment in the comment section below. What do you guys think about these injuries? What would you like the Saints to do? Do you approve of the guys that they brought in? All thoughts, comments, place them in the description section. Let me know how you feel about this information, the latest signings, and of course the injuries, and suggestions on what the Saints should do going forward with these positions. With that being said, I'm gonna get out on that. Y'all hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. By all means, feel free to share the show on your social media feed. We up in this thing, and we're gonna holler at you on the Wednesday stream. We'll be back later on for our Patreon YouTube membership family for film study, among other things. Much love. Who Dat Nation? Who Dat Nation gonna beat them Saints?